Hello everyone. Good evening. Can you hear me well? Can I have a thumbs up? The usual thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you, Patrizia. I hope you can all hear me well. And welcome to tonight's MMM. This is number 25. I'm really excited to be today's MC. My name is Francesca, for those who don't know me. I'm a BC, a second gen from Italy. I'm half Italian, half American. And as usual, I'd like to start today's meeting with the announcements about translation. So for those of you who need Russian translation, I hope you can easily read the slide on the screen and find your way to the Russian translation channel. You can see on the screen that you can access from your computer as well as from your phone. And I'd like to thank in advance our wonderful translator for today, who is Bayarma Efremova, who does a wonderful job at helping us reach as many people as possible in their own language. So thank you very much, Bayarma. If you have any technical issue, if translation doesn't work, I hope you can hear me now and understand me. Please do write to our host, Andy, and he will do his best to help you out. And now, I'd like to invite Patrizia Kashpa-Mayer to offer the opening prayer and open tonight's meeting. Welcome up, Patrizia.
Yes. Thank you, Francesca, and please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Parents, dear true parents, dear brothers and sisters from all over the world, brothers and sisters who are here present in this MMM call, we are very grateful to be together and to have the strong desire to build a community where you can enter with your love and your heart and your protection. We want to learn different things from each other. And that's why this platform has been created in order to share our heart, share our knowledge, and to invite you, most of all, to be part of our community, of our heavenly community. And we invite you tonight, and we want to do our best to share together those beautiful things that will come out. We are very honored and very happy to have a beautiful couple from Korea, Martin and Myra Meyer, with us tonight, that they will share whatever they've been learning and going through as a couple. So we welcome them with our deep heart. And we wish a wonderful evening for each one of us here. And we most of all wish that everyone can learn something and can take back home something very precious for their relationship with you and with their own partner and their family. We offer this prayer together as one family under you, and we invite you to be part of us in my name, Patrizia Kashpa-Mayer, from the Central Blessed Family Kashpa-Mayer, and in the name of all blessed couples here. Aju.
Aju. Thank you very much, Patrizia, as usual, for your wonderful opening prayer. And now, for those of you who are new to MMM, and I know that this month we have a few new faces, so welcome. I'd like to briefly mention what MMM is. First of all, sorry, I'd like to ask you to listen to a couple more announcements before I do that. Before we go into talking about what MMM is and introducing today's speaker, as Patrizia mentioned in their prayer, they're here live from Korea. I'd like to ask you to make sure that your Zoom name says your actual name and surname in the Latin alphabet. I know we have many Russian brothers and sisters today with us. Please do make sure that your Zoom name says your name and surname in the Latin alphabet. You can see on the slide how to rename yourself. You can do so by either right-clicking on your thumbnail and finding the option to rename yourself, or you can find your own name in the list of participants. You are the very first on your own screen in the list of the participants. And if you hover over your name with the mouse, you can find the option to rename yourself. And that is important because throughout the schedule, we're going to have discussion groups, and it's important for our host to know who you are and check which is the best group suitable for you and your blessing situation, as you have told us in the registration form. So please take a moment to make sure that that's okay. And As always, if you have any technical difficulty, you don't know how to rename yourself, or you cannot find the option, please do write to our host, Andy, and he can do that for you. So no worries, there is, Andy just got in chat. And now, as I was saying, I'd like to briefly introduce what MMM is, what this program called Make the Most of Marriage is. Make the Most of Marriage is a BFD Europe and Middle East initiative. So from the Blessed Family Department of the region of Europe and the Middle East. And it aims to create a thriving community of fulfilled blessed couples. We aim to do this by offering a series of regular events every month, let's say 9 months a year. We started in 2019 organizing and 2020 with our first event. And this is our 3rd year that we are running the program. And so, as I was saying at the beginning, this is the event number 25. And we try to create these programs so that blessed couples from our region and all over the world can have a chance every month or so to connect to other blessed couples from near or far, to learn about a certain topic, different every time, but always surrounding the topic of marriage blessing, of family, and meet other couples to connect to share with, to learn from, to find strength in. So you already saw Patricia before and you're seeing me, but there are a few more people as part of the staff, and I'd like to briefly introduce them to you because it's a wonderful team to work with, and I want everyone to get a shout out, even though they might be working behind the scenes. So you'll see from left to right, we have Abigail and Victor. Victor is making the teams for us, and Abigail works mostly behind the scenes, but she does a lot of work. You can see my husband Andy and myself. Then you see Daniel, who is often our MC as well, with his wonderful family, and Emma, his wife. You can see Patricia, who offered the opening prayer, and her husband Franz in the picture. And then you can see our BFD director for our region, Orlando Schenk, with Arthur and their children in the last picture on the right. Thank you very much for the slide. And what can you expect from today's event? For those of you who have already come to a few events, you know, and for those of you who are new, tonight we will have a presentation from some special speakers. I'm sure you know who they are because you received our emails, and that will be followed by a short Q&A, as many questions as time allows. Then we will take a 5-minute break and we will go into discussion groups. So as I was mentioning, the renaming is important for you to go into the right discussion groups. These are made according to your situation. So we try to put young blessed couples without kids together with other young blessed couples without kids, older blessed couples with grandkids together with other older blessed couples with our grandkids, so that they have the most common base as possible, so that they can have a really good sharing as much as we can. These are made of 3-4 couples, depending on how many people participate every time. And that's why it's important that you are registered throughout your registration form. So I hope that's all clear and everyone has had the time to access translation, to rename themselves, to check that they're registered and everything, so that we are ready to introduce tonight's speakers. I will shortly introduce them, but they have a really wonderful, impressive bio, and I invite you to check it out into our when we send it out with our next email again. I will just say a few points to introduce them tonight. As I was saying, they are here from Korea, and it's very early morning there. So even though I will introduce them and they are here, their talk is pre-recorded, but they're here with us to answer your questions live. So please do take the chance throughout the talk to send us your question. You can send them to me, you can send them to Andy, and we will collect them and try to ask as many as possible. So let's talk a little bit about who Martin and Myra Meyer are. As you know, as you can see, they are the perfect speakers for MMM. In fact, they have enough M's themselves as well to really fit into our program. Martin Meyer was born in the Netherlands and joined the Unification Church in California in 1980. Myra Meyer was born in New York City and also joined the Unification Church in 1980. In 1982, they were part of the 2075 couple blessing at Madison Square Garden in New York and have 4 children. Martin was a church leader in the American states of Oregon and Montana. Myra worked for the News World newspaper in New York and the Christian Bernard Jewelry Company of our movement. She traveled throughout America as part of a witnessing team, and Martin attended UTS for 3 years. After graduating in 1991, Martin volunteered to be a missionary in the Soviet Union. So they spent many years in Russia together with their children, where they were pastors in the Moscow region and taught at various workshops. In Moscow, Martin graduated with a PhD degree in 2000. And in the same year, their family moved to Korea, where from 2006 until the present, Martin has been teaching English writing and world religions at Chongqing International Academy, located next to the original palace in Chongpyeong. And Mara has been a part-time English teacher and has been actively involved with supporting the second generation at the Chombo Training Center workshops and as a matching supporter. Besides being active as a Unification Church missionary and teacher, Martin has also published several books in a number of countries and languages. One of them I'd like to mention briefly is The Marriage Blessing and the Principles for Lasting Love, Good Sex, and True Parenthood, which was published in 2020. And we will talk a little bit about that later. But for now, I'd like to welcome up the recording of Martin and Mara that will talk to us about cultivating fondness and admiration.
Evening, everyone, and very early good morning for us here in Korea. It's 4:30 in the morning over here, and we weren't confident that we would be in really great shape to give you a live presentation at this hour, so we pre-recorded our presentation. But don't worry, we are actually live on the call together with you, and we will interact with you personally right after the end of this recorded presentation. My name is Martin Meijer, and I'm originally from the Netherlands.
I'm Ira Meijer, and I'm from America, New York City.
And like many of you, we received the blessing 40 years ago, in 1982 at Madison Square Garden. So we have lots of experience with marriage, just like many of you, some of you maybe less, but we're really happy to share some of our in this presentation, where we will be speaking about how to cultivate fondness and admiration for your spouse, for your marriage partner. So our presentation is mostly based on the book of John Gottman, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. And John, together with his wife, Julie, has researched marriage relationship for now almost 5 decades. So he's one of the world's most renowned authorities on marriage relationships. And he has written, and they have written numerous books, and this is probably the best known among them. Wonderful book, very readable. It's not very technical or heavy on the research. It's very practical, gives a lot of good guidance and advice. And one thing that I like best in this book is that there are a lot of exercises in there that you can do together with your partner, with your spouse. And as a matter of fact, you will be getting or have already gotten a segment of our workshop workbook where there are a lot of exercises that you can do together with your spouse that mostly come from this book. So again, I really hope and really encourage you to look at those exercises and do them. It can really, really help you to understand your spouse better and improve your marriage relationship. So contrary to the conventional wisdom that love is blind, Gottman says love is not blind. Emotionally intelligent couples are intimately familiar with each other's world. They remember major events in each other's history, and they keep updating their information as facts and feelings of their spouse's world change. So we constantly learn more about each other. We find out more about our partner's background, but we also have to constantly update that information. Mara is not the same person today that she was when I met her first 40 years ago. We have to update our information so that we can respond to each other in an appropriate manner. If you really don't know someone, how can you truly love them? Couples who have detailed love maps of each other's world are far better prepared to cope with stressful events and conflicts, which are bound to come up in any relationship. So I have to create a love map. We have to really understand who the other person is. I have to know what Mara's likes are, her dislikes, her interests, her hobbies, her dreams and her hopes, and also her fears and her needs, so that I can respond well to all those different aspects of her personality. When we originally were matched with each other by true parents, we didn't know much about each other, but we soon found out that although we are very, very different from each other, I come from a white, middle-class, North European background. Mara comes from a big city, New York City, Manhattan, Hispanic background, very, very different, worlds apart. But what we had in common is that we both came from kind of difficult family backgrounds. Both of our parents were divorced, difficult circumstances, broken family. So there are certain situations that happen in our relationship where either Mara or I get triggered because of certain things, sensitivities in our childhood, in our own background. So in the beginning, we felt maybe, oh, well, why does Martin react so strongly to this? Or why does Mara respond in the way that she does? But we have to learn where the sensitive areas of our relationship, in the spouses, really lies, so that we can be open and responsive to that and sensitive to each other's need and situation. So how do you do that?
Another thing that the Gottmans talk about is marriage time, really spending time together, meaningful time as a couple. I really like this picture because it reminds me of us, of Martin and me. We love to go out and we love to walk and talk in nature. We've had our best conversations going out for walks in nature. And it's really a wonderful time to connect to each other. Another thing that we take time for is another marriage time is now that our kids are grown up, then we have more time to go out on dates, or we go away for the weekend. If you saw our intro video for this program, we actually did that video on a cable car. We went away for the weekend to a resort, one of our resorts in the mountain, and we had a wonderful weekend together. So it's a wonderful time for us to connect. We have to, now that we are making that time, a marriage time, a priority for us, that it's really has brought us even closer together. It's really important time. I hope that you can make marriage time for your couple as well.
So how do you create fondness and admiration for your spouse? Fondness and admiration are two of the most crucial elements in a rewarding and lasting marriage. Although even happy couples get irritated and provoked at times by their partner's shortcomings, they still cherish each other. And that is critical to strengthening their marriage. When you acknowledge and openly deliberately discuss positive aspect of your partner and your marriage, your bond is strengthened. This makes it much easier to address the problem areas in your marriage and initiate positive changes. So some people have compared investing in a relationship to making deposits into an emotional bank account. By deliberately and thoughtfully and caringly expressing gratitude and appreciation for your spouse, for your partner, you invest in that person. You build that person up, and you create a reservoir of emotional riches and connection with that person that you can rely on, that you can draw upon in times of difficulty. So it's very important to not just leave that to accident. There really is important to take time for that. And this is also why that this idea of marriage time is so important. So in our own relationship, there are lots of things that I'm very, very fond of in Myra, and that I really admire and appreciate. And I'll pick one item from my long list, and that is Myra is really a people person. And I myself, I like being around people. I counsel people. I give divine principle lectures, workshops, and so forth. Of course, I care about people. But Myra is different. Myra is really like second nature. When she is somewhere in a room with people, somehow people are drawn to her, and they come to her like bees to the honey jar. So for a long time, Myra was a workshop mother at the Champion Heaven and Earth Training Center, or now the Chumbo Training Center, at the second generation workshops in the summer, right? And the kids would always come to her and share their problems and I have concerns with her very, very naturally and very openly. And Myra is wonderful with people, and that's something that I really value and appreciate in you.
Thank you. I also admire many things about Martin, and also I'm fond of many things. One of the things that I admire most about Martin, about you, is Martin's generosity. Martin is a generous person. He's generous with me, with our children, our family, and with others. When people ask him for help with something, Martin is always happy to help others without complaining. And I really admire that in him a lot. And another thing that I'm really fond of is Martin's sense of humor. Martin has a good sense of humor. He keeps me laughing. Sometimes if I'm sad or tired or worried about the children, he can lighten up the mood, my mood. And I don't take things so seriously because he makes me laugh. We can laugh together. And it's a really important time for us. And I'm really fond of that character in him. And I'm really grateful. Making bids. Another thing that Gottman talks about is making bids. He says, in marriage, couples are always making bids for each other's attention, affection, support, or humor. Bids can be as minor as asking for a back rub, or as significant as seeking help in carrying the burden when an aging parent is ill. Turning toward your partner is the basis of trust, emotional connection, passion, and a satisfying sex life. So bids are very important in a relationship. They're really an invitation for connection. They can be big and small, as Gottman said. It can be a smile, it can be a touch, it can be a request. When Martin is, I'll give you an example of a bid that Martin makes on a regular basis. I mean, we're both pretty busy, we're both teachers, and sometimes we both teach online. So Martin is on his computer and in one room, and I'm on my computer in another room working, teaching. And sometimes when Martin takes a break and he wants to connect with me, he's missing me, he'll come to my room and he said, would you like a drink? Would you like some tea? So, I mean, of course I can say, well, I'm in the middle of something, or I can say, oh, I'm not really thirsty, but I'm aware, I've become aware that this is a bit, this is a time that Martin wants us to be together. It's a bit for attention, for connection. And then I say yes. And we spend that time together. He'll make some tea, I'll get some snack, and we can talk about some things. It doesn't have to be very long. Even a small time, even short times together on a regular basis, on a continuous basis, and being aware of each other's bids is very important to connect us and to make us close to each other.
So one way that Mara makes a bid is that when she's in the kitchen preparing one of her wonderful dinners, whatever, pollo con arroz or something else exciting, lovely, wonderful fusion cuisine, she calls me over. I'm, as usual, somewhere here at my desk working on my next bestseller, and I get really focused on things when I'm involved in my work. And she said, Martin, she sticks her head in the door and she said, Martin, can you please come over here, because I cannot really understand what it says on this label here, or this utensil needs some fixing. It doesn't really work the way it's supposed to work. And then I detach myself from my important preoccupations and come into the kitchen and then fix whatever needs to be fixed, or I show Mara how it can be fixed. And so if I just do that, if I just fix the utensil, say, look now, sweetheart, like this is how it works. So next time you can do it yourself, so that you don't have to distract me from my important activities, then I missed the whole point, right? Of course, maybe she objectively needs some help with this particular thing, this particular item, but more often than not, she wants my attention. She wants to connect to me. She wants, just to spend a little bit of time with me. I sit, at the kitchen table for a few minutes, or I give her a big hug, and then I go back to my work. So that's an important, meaningful moment to connect, right?
Yes.
So we got to learn to respond to each other in the way that that person wants, in the way that that person needs. I think some of you who have been part of this program a little bit longer may have heard a presentation on the 5 love languages. That's another thing that we need to know, right? What works with our spouse? In what way do they communicate? So how can we respond to their bids? Because it's not always in the same way. Maybe they really need some help or support or attention with a particular thing. So it's important to learn what your spouse's love language is, and to respond in a way that not you think needs to be responded, but that your spouse needs you to respond. So many people think that most couples fight about sex, money, in-laws, or some other really huge issue, but the one thing that couples fight about most is nothing. These fights result from failed bids to connect emotionally. In the small moments, it's important to turn towards each other instead of turning away from each other or turning against each other. So when Mara calls me over, say, Martin, can you please help? Of course, I have the option to say, sorry, Mara, but I'm really at an important point in my writing right now. I really cannot step away from that. Some other time. I can say, of course, just wait, please, sweetheart, wait 5 minutes and then I'll come over. That's a little bit different, but not completely ignoring it. Or worse, turning against her and saying, please leave me alone. Stop bothering me. I'm busy and I'm working on this really important issue. Just figure it out yourself. Okay? But unfortunately, that happens in relationships. So these moments of connection are really important for the times when certain challenges arise. Gottman again emphasizes this point very strongly, that most marital differences cannot be resolved. Couples spend year after year trying to change each other's minds or personalities or likes or dislikes or whatever it is, but it cannot be done. This is because most of their disagreements are rooted in fundamental differences in personalities and tastes. That's kind of depicted in this little diagram over here. There's certain areas of our personalities that simply do not overlap and may never overlap because we're fundamentally different people. Mara likes certain things or has certain character qualities that are simply different from mine. And that is something that I have to learn to accept and to cherish. And there are other areas where there's overlap, where there are some challenges or issues that can be resolved with sensitive communication, with good listening to each other, by coming to some kind of a compromise. And then hopefully over time, as the relationship deepens, that area of the solvable and negotiable issues can gradually expand. I think that many of you may be familiar with the idea that in relationships, marital relationships, usually there is a more stronger, more active, aggressive person. Sometimes the husband, sometimes the wife. Now, people oftentimes think it's the husband. It can be the other way around as well. And there's another person who's maybe a little bit more quiet, a little bit more responsive, a little bit more a wait and see kind of person. So marriage counselors and therapists, they sometimes refer to that as the difference between the rhino and the hedgehog, or the hailstorm and the turtle. And in no matter which marriage it is, but in almost every marriage, there is a rhino and a hedgehog, a hailstorm and a turtle. And you may guess who is the rhino and the hailstorm in our marriage, the hedgehog or the turtle in our marriage. And probably you would have guessed that already, that I am the rhino, Mara is the turtle, right? So Mara is very thoughtful, is very feels very deep, is a very emotionally very rich person, but she moves at a very deliberate pace. She has to think about things. I still remember her telling me that she does not like surprises. She needs to know things ahead of time so that she can internally and emotionally prepare for the things that are going to happen. So I have to be patient with that. So, and that applies even in small things. You know, we're in the clothing store at MS or whatever it is, and Mara goes through the racks, you know, like looking at blouse after blouse or pair of pants after pants. And I think to myself, wow, you know, you looked at quite a bunch of those things. You know, it's time to make up your mind, honey. So, but I need to be patient. I need to be understanding. I need to accept that that's how Mara thinks and how she lives and operates, and accept that.
Well, for me, it's the opposite. You know, I'm thinking, why does Martin have to do so many things? Why does he have to walk fast and drive fast and always has to be busy, always has to do something? So sometimes I always think a lot about that in the past. Why does he always have to be doing something? And I realized, you know, Martin is a driven person. He's a goal-oriented person. He's different than me. And I can appreciate that now, because I understand that these things are important to him. So I don't question now why this, why that, because I realize that these are important things for him. And because it's important, then I accept that and I appreciate it and I respect it.
So in every marriage, there are happy times, easy times, points that we easily agree on, that we can really admire and appreciate and value in each other. And then there are moments where we are really challenged because of some kind of strange quality or a little quirk that the other person has, or a disagreement about something. Could be about finances, could be about the children, can be about anything. But as Gottman points out, what can make a marriage work is surprisingly simple. Happily married couples aren't smarter, richer, or more psychologically astute than others, but in their day-to-day lives, they have hit upon a dynamic that keeps their negative thoughts and feelings about each other, which all couples have, we too, from overwhelming they're positive ones. And counselors, therapists know this as a positive sentiment override. So what that means is that your positive exchanges, your positive feelings for each other are stronger than the negative ones. The negative ones are there. They pop up from time, and they, in some way or form, may be always there. But over time, you build a richer foundation of connection to each other and positive feelings about each other that gives you that resources you in a powerful way to deal with these challenges in a much more confident and easy manner, so that it doesn't become a huge issue. Again, you keep investing in that emotional bank account, expressing love, appreciation, gratitude for your spouse, and building each other's up. And then it becomes much easier, much more doable to deal with these challenging moments. And then eventually you can become like this. So we're not quite there yet, both internally and externally, right? But we're on the way. All of you are doubtlessly familiar with the term Shimjong, which true parents oftentimes talk about, our father spoken about many, many times. And we have learned that that means heart. But it's interesting because the expression Shimjong is composed of two characters, Shim and Jong. And both these characters actually mean heart. So you could say it's Shimjong really means heart, twice. But the Shim is the heart in each person, the internal personal heart that Myra has, that I have, that you have, your spouse has, that God has. The Jong is different. The Jong is the shared heart, the heart between the two people. It's the relationship, the heart and essence of the relationship. So you could say that the one is the individual heart, the other one is the common or shared heart. So this person, this Christopher Chung, who's a psychoanalyst and a therapist, really explains this concept in a very interesting way. He said the concept in Jong, the concept of I is weakened for the sake of strengthening Jong. In other words, the cell membrane of the self is thin enough to be permeated by Jong. Jong is gradually developed over time through numerous interpersonal exchanges. The more prolonged and intensive these exchanges, the stronger and deeper Jong becomes. So as I express my heart and love, my fondness and admiration for Mara, and Mara expresses hers for me, more and more we build up a shared realm of love, appreciation, and understanding. And there's an area where our personalities merge with each other. So some other counselors, therapists have described this as the space between, the area that you share in common, your shared heart that you share with each other. So over time, as you spend more time with each other, that bond deepens and strengthens. So this is, by the way, Jong does not only apply to husband-wife relationship. There's Jong in all relationships, between parent and child, between friends, or between colleagues at work. But of course, the Jong that is shared between husband and wife is really, really special, is really profound, and it's probably the most important, other than with God, of all the relationships. So it's really important to cultivate it through a beautiful, meaningful relationship with each other. So thank you very much for your attention. This is the end of our presentation, and we'll go on to the next part of the program.
Wonderful. Let's show our appreciation to Martin and Mara by clapping or using the reactions on Zoom. let's show them virtually that we would be there and clapping for them if we were in the same room at a workshop. That was a wonderful presentation. I took so many notes. I don't want to go through all of them, but I just want to mention a few of my favorite points briefly. I really loved how you mentioned about being purposeful in letting your spouse know the things we love about them, and particularly loved that you kind of shared a demonstration of that with each other. It's so lovely that you mentioned so many practical examples from your life together that shows how well you know each other, how well you understand each other's bids, as you were saying, and the point of the importance of turning towards your partner when they are asking for something or one of these bids. That, as Mara was saying, is an invitation for connection. I really loved how you expressed that. And on a personal note, I definitely do what you shared that Mara does while making dinner, asking for help for this or that. So my husband and I were laughing a lot about that. I did not think about it in this term as a bid, but yeah, it's definitely fun to connect in those moments. So I always find something that I need him for. So that was really fun to hear. So I'd like to invite our speakers up now and ask them a couple of the questions we have received. But if you have any more questions, and as I'm saying that, I see that I'm receiving some more, please keep them coming. We'll try to answer as many as possible, as we always do. So let's start with this one. Question: how do you invite true parents and heavenly parents while being together, and how do you feel their presence? You're muted.
Wait,
there you go.
Okay. That's a good question. We don't really have such a deliberate system for that because of our schedule is quite different because of our work, and so we rise and go to bed sometimes at different times. And also in general, I'm more of a morning person. Mara is more of an evening person. So other than a rhino and turtle, we are also morning and evening person. So we're different in almost all areas. So I get up early, so I do my own morning hundoke early before I go to work. Mara finds other times and opportunities for that. And we both also have a rich prayer life. We always, whenever we're together before meals and so forth, of course, we pray together, but a lot of our prayers we do by ourselves. Our sharing of love and connection to true parents and to heavenly parent is more, I would say, more implicit. We don't have like a deliberate system. We talk about it all the time. I am part of some committee, also activities here in the community here with the church. So I discuss these things with Mara over meals and so forth, but we don't really have a set system for that. It's more as the need arises, more spontaneously. And meanwhile, we maintain our own connection at our different times in different ways.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think we have time for one more question. So the question reads, what can help you get to this positive sentiment override when you feel the negative feelings come up?
You have to make the effort, basically make the effort. Even sometimes you don't feel like it. You know, sometimes you might be angry or upset at your spouse, but still, even if you, like for myself, maybe I'm irritated or I'm upset, something that Martin does, or I'm tired, so I'm grumpy, but still, one thing that always helps me personally is to serve Martin. So even if I'm upset, even if I'm upset or angry or irritated, I'll do something for him. I'll serve him. I'll make him some tea because I know he's working, he's busy himself. And when I do that, then I feel a connection already automatically just by doing something small with an open heart. Even though I'm still in my mind, I'm thinking about that I'm upset about something, but in my heart, once I serve him, then my heart opens and softens. So it's really making an effort, right? Love it's an action, it's a verb. So I'm always trying to do something positive, even if in the beginning I don't feel like it. And it always helps when I do.
Maybe I can add something to that. And I think what is very important is time. Because when you, again, I mentioned before, when you get triggered, and I think this is probably true for almost anyone, you know, neurologists, they study the brain, and they say when you get really emotional, then whatever the limbic system gets activated, and then you cannot think clearly, like your neocortex doesn't really function well because it gets blocked somehow. So if you get really emotional, you get also pretty irrational. So I know that for myself, if I get upset, the worst thing I can do is immediately respond to the situation. I have to stop, walk out of the room, cool off, at least 20 minutes, half an hour, don't say anything, leave it alone. Sometimes you need, if it's a big issue, you need even to spend a day where you keep a little bit more calm. I even do that with email. Somebody writes me a stupid email and I think, oh my gosh, I want to kill this guy. Worst thing you can do is to immediately write back. Wait a day and write the next day when you can think clearly. So time is so important. So you have to know yourself. I have to know myself. Even though I look very cool on the outside, actually I have a temper. Mara knows that, right? So I'm not all that cool, frankly speaking. So catch yourself, and then the next moment when I can think clearly and calmly, then I can discuss, look, you know, that was difficult for me. You know, maybe we can do a better way to do it next time. But all of it, the important thing, of course, in that is that this is predicated or based on already having a foundation of heart and investment in your spouse. It's not something that you can do in the moment. So before you can respond like that, already you have to have that reservoir of connectedness. And that, of course, is something that is a much more a long-term investment that you have to cultivate. Okay, Mara is telling me don't talk so long. Okay, so, right.
Thank you for the answers, both answers. You're really making my husband laugh. Thanks, you're giving me a talk personally. I relate a lot to this. So one more question that we have received just now: how to inspire a spouse that maybe is not so much aware of the need for this growth together or does not want to bother with it? I'll also post it in chat so everyone can see. There we
go. Okay. That's of course not easy. I some time ago I read an interesting book. I forgot the author's name, but it's called The Divorce Remedy. And of course, in this case, the author was talking about more extreme situations, but I think this can apply to all situations, that when one spouse is, I don't know, more active, one takes more responsibility for the relationship, and the other one is not so interested. This author used the expression, it takes one to tango. Now, you're familiar with the expression, it takes two to tango, but she says, it's not true. It takes one to tango. Because if one person takes responsibility authentically in a loving and sincere way, over time, this will make some impact. This will make a difference in the relationship. And I think it's a very principled position because true parents always emphasize the power of Abel, right? If Abel really takes responsibility, serves, loves, embraces. I don't want to say that this is necessarily Cain-Abel between the spouses, but it's a comparison. If that person really takes responsibility over time, that other person will more likely be more likely to respond to that and be more willing to work together with the other person. That's within reason, of course, because again, there are some differences that are non-negotiable and perpetual. So that is, of course, within a certain limitation, but we do have power. We do have a significant degree of ability to influence the relationship, even if we're more on our own in that. So I think that is, in that respect, I think every person can have hope.
Wonderful, thank you. That was not an easy question, but thank you very much for asking, and thank you very much to you too for answering that. All right, please do keep more questions coming if you have them. We can take the chance to ask more questions after the discussion groups by the end of our meeting. But for now, let's move on to talking about briefly which discussion group questions we're going to have today for our discussion groups. So you can see them on the screen. And these were prepared by our speakers together with our team. And they are based on the talk that we heard just before. So the first one is their usual introduce yourself briefly. And then we're going to talk about what are 3 positive aspects of our spouse and share about that. What is the key that sustains happiness in your marriage? What is one way that you can connect to each other on a daily basis, or that you already do that? And how do you show fondness and admiration to your spouse, and how do you want to receive it? So you can also see the questions in chat, and you have received them as well in our last email to you from today. But now let's take 5 minutes, have a break, and if you want, start reflecting about these questions and how you're going to answer them in the discussion groups later on. So please have a good break. See you soon. So, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a good discussion group. I look forward to hearing your feedback in the feedback form so that you can help us improve. But before we get to the last announcements of the meeting that we usually have, I'd like to welcome up once again our speakers, Martin and Myra, and try to ask them a few more questions before we close. Thank you for sending in all your questions today. I love it when we get to ask many questions to our speaker. So I hope you also had a good discussion. And I'll just go ahead and ask the first question. So this person asks, how important is prioritization in a life of a couple? Is it okay to require from my spouse that he prioritizes me? I'll go ahead and also post that in chat.
Well, you mentioned the word require, which is a strong word. So one of the things in general, they say, most counselors, they say it's important that you don't demand things, because if you demand things, that's usually becomes a problem, if you're too strong. So I think it's important to make a request, to ask for something and say, if it's possible, I would really appreciate it. It can be to sit down for a moment when you have a moment when it's time for it. Maybe we can talk about it, because I would really like to ask you something. And then when the time is right, then you can make a request and say, look, I would really, I appreciate, us spending a little bit of time together. For me, it would be wonderful if we could do A, B, C, something like that. Make it a request, and if possible, give the person a choice. And don't say like only I want to do this, but is it possible that we spend more time outdoors or so? We could go for a walk, or we could go whatever, do something else. Go I don't know, shopping somewhere or so. But give the person some choices. Make a request and give some choices to the person, and leave it open-ended. And then the other person has some kind of opportunity, some autonomy to respond to that and to make a choice, so that he or she doesn't really feel like he's put on the spot. I think that has a much better chance of working.
Right. Did you want to add anything, Myra?
No, I mean, we have to make the time, because, I mean, of course, we've been married for a long time, and I remember parts when we were just so busy that we really didn't we had other priorities. Yeah, our mission, our children, our work, this and this and that. So we have to consciously make it. And then we're wondering, why aren't we getting along? Why aren't we enjoying each other? Because we're not spending time together. It's not important, you know? So, but to actually consciously say this is important. Our marriage is a priority. We have to work on it. We have to invest in each other. It's very, very important to make it a priority. Absolutely.
Yes, thank you both for answering that. I think that is a question that not just the person who asked had in their mind. We hear this often from couples that choose to come to MMM, that they feel like in the past years they had to put mission first, and that was what glued them together, and they really gave it their all. And it's also important, and they also want to take the chance to work on their relationship. So just as you said, that can help also find out if you spend time together, then getting along and really making the other person feel like a priority. And also, as Martin was saying, great to, instead of making the requirement a request, and to leave a choice. So very great answer. Thank you very much. And I'll ask one more question. So what is your main motive for getting to know each other? What motivates you to overcome barriers? That is, why do you need to get to know each other? Adjust.
Okay. Well, of course, this actually in our breakout discussion, breakout room, also this came up. The fundamental starting point for our relationship, of course, is faith. Faith in God and true parents. So that is always important. One person in particular emphasized this point, and I think that is a very important and legitimate point, is to always remember that the fundamental point is, we have it's not a 2-position foundation, right? It's a 4-position foundation. And the top position is God, and below God, there's true parents and the principle and the idea of the blessing. So there is a higher and greater purpose in our relationship. So that's always important to keep that in perspective. So no matter how difficult things get, and sometimes in some marriages things get very difficult, right? The communication is almost non-existent, and there are a lot of difficult circumstances. So to go back and to trust that God is there and that God is in the relationship. And we've had moments like that myself. I come, like I said, we come from divorce backgrounds, and for me, my family situation and the divorce of my parents was a very difficult experience. I was very young. I was 7 years old. It was a very impressionable age. And so I've had, when you see your parents do certain things, then, you imitate your parents. So I had moments in our relationship where I felt divorce or something like that, like that really, I need to get out of this because that's what I saw my parents do, right? That was the example that my parents gave to me. So there were moments that I have to really step back. Wait a minute, what is this all about? This is God's will. God wants this. And I had to really go back to my fundamental position of my own faith. Now I'm so happy that I did that, because we have a great relationship with each other, and many of the problems are not coming even close to such extreme circumstances. But I think it's really important to always remember that. And for both of us, our faith in God and our relationship with God, it's not just abstract, but our relationship with God is very, very important. So we always pray, we always take time out to pray. And I think that's very, very important, to always nurture that position that is above us and within us of God, to make God central in the relationship. That's really fundamental. It's essential. That should never be lost from view.
Yes, wonderful. Is there anything you'd like to add, Myra, concerning this question?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think when Martin and I, when we met each other, when we were matched, we really liked each other. We were really attracted to each other. It was really like love at first sight. And we went through this honeymoon period that we were really, really happy together. And then, of course, when we come together and we live on a day-to-day basis, then we realize that, you know, all each other wonderful qualities, but also we came with a lot of baggage also, like Martin was saying, from our family or ancestors or whatever. And that's when your relationship with God and your faith really has to be strong, so that you can overcome those challenges, so that you can really heal each other, and really have faith that that God can love your spouse. You know, that you can love your spouse, that God is using you also to love your spouse, and to connect on a deeper level, to heal each other's wounds. And it's impossible for me. I feel it would be impossible without God in the center of our relationship, and without my faith. Like I said, we liked each other. We love each other, but even that's not enough. We really need God's love and God's grace and forgiveness and healing.
Yeah, that is really the difference between a marriage, right, and a blessing, where
yes.
God is at the center of your relationship, and either you know that God has matched you to true parents, or for us, God has matched us to our parents, but still there is a reason why we are together. We can together help each other grow up, become an image of God, and maybe restore mistakes of our past, or benefit our future generations. Or there's so much more in our relationship that we can see besides the day-to-day quarrels. So yeah, it's really wonderful to keep it in mind. Thank you very much for bringing that up in this answer. And I'd like to apologize that we will not manage to ask more questions. I'd love to have the time, but we're a little bit over time already, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. But thank you very much for sending in all your questions. And I would like to move on to the last point of the recommendations. So the recommendations from today's topic and from today's speakers are we'll start with the Blessed Couples Workbook that Martin and Myra already mentioned in their talk. It was already sent out in our past email, and we will put the link for it in chat, but we will also send it out in our next email. And Martin has put together this wonderful workbook full of exercises for you to do. So please try to look through the workbook together and do the exercises together. And I'm sure you will really spend some wonderful quality time, as they were saying, by doing these exercises. And I hope that it will benefit your couple. And another recommendation is one of the books that Martin wrote in particular. I want to recommend, and I want to invite Martin to tell us a little bit more about the book, The Marriage Blessing, that was published in 2020. So Martin.
Okay, yeah, the book actually originally came out earlier than that. It already came out in 2015 in a Korean version, and at that time it was called People Who Choose the Unification Church, because of the title that I originally suggested. So this is the oh, you can already see it. It doesn't work. I don't know why. Anyway, yeah.
Oh, but she has it in English. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, this is the Korean version, so you cannot really see that for some reason on camera. But that came out in 2015 already, and it did comparatively well. Quite a few people were interested in Korea, so it's been around already for some time. And then more recently, we put it out in English as well, also. And I wrote the book in such a way that it can be used. It's both inspiring, as I have been told, also by members, for members themselves. Some people, I know that some of the Korean elders that I know here locally, they struggle a little bit with their family too, and they bought it for their own children because they were witnessing to their own second generation children. And they used my book for that, because it's kind of explaining difficult points such as, change of blood lineage and absolute sex and eternal love and all kinds of things that can get a little bit abstract or difficult in kind of down-to-earth terms with a lot of examples and stories and so forth and so on. And so that can both be used to inspire members, but also it's a very, very good witnessing tool, because it can be understood and read by people that have no background in divine principle at all, because it explains the principle in down-to-earth terms. It has some really interesting pictures, graphics in there that can also illustrate what the chapters are about. And also, there are many, many stories from different couples in there. So I collected a lot of, I did a lot of interviews, or I asked people to submit stories. So in every chapter, there are 2, 3, 4, 5 or more stories from couples from Brazil and Japan and America and Germany and all different places, where people give little testimonies, interesting stories that are applicable to that particular chapter, that can really illustrate blessed married life, or even absolute sex. People telling some really interesting stories that make it much more real, much more tangible. So good for members, first and second generation, good for witnessing. So that's the end of the sales pitch, okay? So I encourage you to, and the workbook, please use the workbook, okay? It has wonderful exercises in it, okay? Please use that.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And as I said, you can find the link to the workbook as well as the link to the Amazon page of Martin's books. And there you can find the book as well, the Marriage Blessing book, in the chat. And we will also send it out in our next email. So if you're registered and you're in our mailing list, you will receive the links there as well. But please go ahead and check them out in chat as well, if you'd like. And I'd like to once again really thank our speakers. They're here in the early morning for them. Thank you very much for lending us your time, your wisdom, and sharing so many of your personal stories. It is very much appreciated, and I'm sure everyone in the call really appreciated it. So thank you once again for joining our program for today. And we look forward to seeing you again, maybe. And
yes.
And for the last announcements, before we conclude, I'd like to mention that we have a WhatsApp group. So I know sometimes it's difficult to find the right email. The last email goes into spam or some mistake or so. It's hard to find. So we thought it might be easier to create a WhatsApp group where we will try our best not to spam you, just with the Zoom link and the basic details, the discussion questions, the feedback forms. If you would like to join, there should be a link in chat. There it is. And please join, and you will receive always the Zoom link via WhatsApp. And then I'd like to briefly announce the next call. If you like MMM and you enjoyed tonight, you might want to join us next month. Next month's speaker is Elisabetta Nistri, or you might know her as Betty Kali. Her event will be on the 24th of November, and her title will be How to Care for Each Other While You Are in the Vortex of Responsibilities for the Mission. So it's going to be a really interesting event. Once again, I invite you to join us. Thank you very much for the slide. And last but not least, we have a feedback form. I mentioned it a couple of times already. Please do let us know how you like this event. Help us improve. These events are for you, and we're happy to hear how you like them, what you would do different if you would, any kind words for our speakers, and then we send them on your comments as well. So please do use the feedback form. It takes 2 minutes to fill it out, and you can find the link for it in chat as well as in our next email. Thank you very much for the slide. All right, I'd like to just remind everyone that even though we try to keep the morale upbeat, there are difficult situations in everyone's blessing, and it's okay to need some support, and the BFD has great support that can offer. So please, if you need more support, you need a counselor, someone to talk to, do look for the BFD support link, all the contacts that we have on our BFD EME website, and the link for that will also be sent in our next email. So please do take the chance if you want to. And I hope that you find the help that you need. All right, and it's now time to close. And I'd like to invite Martin to offer the closing prayer.
Dearest, loving Heavenly Parent, thank you so much that we can be gathered together today, actually 2 different days, evening and morning in different time zones, as brothers and sisters and as your sons and daughters, loving Parent. We are so grateful to you for your love and your grace, for your guidance and blessing, and that you love us so absolutely and unconditionally, each one of us, loving Parent. Each person on this call is so precious, Father, and there are also people that probably wanted to be on this call, or spouses of people that are on this call but that could not join for various reasons. You think of all these people, you love all these people so deeply and so dearly, Father. Pray that you can be with them and with all of us as we continue to commit ourselves to living a blessed married life and blessed family life in a true, original, heavenly and principled way, loving Parent. Please be with us so that we can overcome the challenges that we face, give us strength and inspiration, wisdom, encouragement and guidance, and also share in our moments of joy, Father, and of happiness when we really are able to connect to each other as well, Father. We offer always everything to you with gratitude and love. We want to uplift you and inspire you, and uplift and inspire our true parents, Father. And we want to bring great results and accomplishments through our marriages and families, also in the larger world surrounding us, loving Parent. Thank you so much for this wonderful platform, this program, the Make the Most of Marriage program. Please bless all the brothers and sisters that are working so hard on this program and continue to guide their efforts, loving Parent. We thank you for everything, and we offer this time, our now meeting at this time to you with gratitude and love, and we pray together in the names of offer this in the names of all of our blessed families, and also our own name, Martin and Mara Meyer, a blessed central family. Adieu.
Adieu. For those of you who still would like to, there is a chance to join your discussion groups for an extra 30 minutes, but please do keep in mind not everyone has the time, or maybe they're in a different time zone so they cannot join. So feel free to do so, and otherwise have a good evening, have a good day, wherever you are. I hope you enjoyed today's program, and see you next time.